Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the White House. Thank you again for coming across the entire country to come here and celebrate some of these amazing champions today. We're incredibly excited to have experts from open government and civic hacker communities from around the country. This morning, we'll celebrate our open government and civic hacking champions of change. Leaders who will share with you their experience making government more transparent and building tools, communities, and businesses that address critical social issues at the local, state, and federal areas. For those of you on Twitter, the hashtag is hashtag WHChamps. You can also tweet us at @OpenGov. And of course, this is being live streamed at whitehouse.gov/live. So if you want to tweet that out to your friends or email that to your friends, and we have some folks joining us online at whitehouse.gov/live. Well, other than the president, there's no bigger champion of the work that you guys are doing every day than the United States Chief Technology Officer, Todd Park. I would call him a former technology entrepreneur, but here at the White House, he is the tech entrepreneur in residence. Seriously, check out his Twitter handle. He's the White House tech entrepreneur in residence. And he's a tireless advocate for the work you do every day here in the White House and around the country. So without further ado, here's Todd Park, the United States Chief Technology Officer.
Good morning. How's everyone doing? Fantastic, fantastic. Well, it's a great pleasure to welcome you here to Champions of Change, a very special day here at the White House. And we're here to celebrate public service. Public service is taking on new forms in the digital age, new kinds of collaboration between state, federal, and local government, civic innovators applying their tech skills in all kinds of new ways for civic good, open government advocates doing all kinds of positive things in their communities by building high-tech tools to help health workers and disaster response crews better serve communities, piloting innovative programs that involve traditionally disengaged communities in local governance, using new technologies to enhance government participation and transparency, and much, much more. We're here to celebrate amazing individuals, businesses, and organizations whose extraordinary stories and accomplishments have positively impacted their communities. All of our honorees embody this new spirit of public service in the digital age in the 21st century by leading civic engagement in their communities and building new kinds of tech tools that address critical social issues in communities across the country. We're incredibly excited to be celebrating these champions today, be celebrating all the things that they're doing through civic hacking and open government advocacy to improve life in very tangible, feelable, measurable ways in communities across the country. And I think even more importantly, we're here to actually kick off even more work across the country to do more of the same and make life better for citizens everywhere. So many congratulations again to the champions, to the ecosystems of innovation that support you in your communities, that you've partnered with to get amazing things done. And to add further words of congratulations, I'd like to issue a fellow champion of change, actually, that you have here in the White House, Jonathan Greenblatt, Director of the Office of Social Participation, Innovation, Civic Participation, all kinds of good stuff along those lines. Ladies and gentlemen, Jonathan Greenblatt.
Good morning. Oh, come on. We need more energy. There we go. Well, listen, congratulations, everybody, for being here. It's super exciting for me to have the chance to talk to all of you. And it's even more exciting, actually, interestingly, to have the chance to follow Todd. For those of you who don't know, there is so much incredible energy and incredible ingenuity that Todd and the Office of Science and Technology Policy are harnessing every single day through a remarkable team of people doing extraordinary initiatives and connecting us more closely with communities who are actually getting the work done. And that's a lot of what I do in the Office of Social Innovation and Civic Participation. I would say to you that right now we're in this moment of transformation where we're seeing new models of civic engagement that were just never heretofore possible. And Todd or Brian kicked it off by saying, for those of you on Twitter, here's a question. Is there anybody in this room who isn't on Twitter? Raise your hand. Let's find that one person. We found you, and I would guess you'll have a Twitter handle by the time this day is over. So because, again, if you think about models like Twitter and Facebook and Tumblr and Pinterest and all these other extraordinary tools that we have at our disposal, and models like open data and SMS, things that are changing the way the communities come together. And there are some extraordinary stories I know you're going to hear about today. Like George from, I knew about keeping Austin weird, but I didn't know about keeping Austin fed. Is George here? There you go. Like, what an amazing work is happening in Austin that, George, you've been leading, to keep Austin. Is there anybody in the world who wants to keep something fed? You're making it happen in Austin, which is pretty cool. Or Steve Spiker from Oakland. Is Steve here? Like, again, more extraordinary work. You're going to hear so many of these amazing stories today. And like Todd said at the start of this, today is not just about celebrating, it's about starting. Because social innovation isn't something that starts and ends. It's a continuous process of improvement and change. It's a model that the president has brought, so we're using strategies of social innovation, new tools like expanding AmeriCorps, or creating new social impact bonds, or crafting innovation funds to change the way government works from the inside out to better deliver services and improve the experience of the American people. And technology can be an extraordinary tool to catalyze and create more such change. So you've got an amazing agenda. You've got a really exciting day. What I'm excited about is really, sure, I'm excited about today, but I'm more excited to come back in 6 months to a year to hear about all the amazing things that you're going to create with some of the energy that gets generated and the collaboration that starts to initiate right here, right now. So I'm going to hand it back off to Brian. And I'm going to take just a moment to point out, if Todd is our tech entrepreneur in residence, Brian is one of our social entrepreneurs in residence. He's a returned Peace Corps volunteer who was in Nicaragua, helped to build a remarkable company delivering telecommunication services to indigenous and local people in Nicaragua. You don't see that in his resume. He doesn't talk about it a lot. But I think people like Todd and Brian, the people that the president's been able to recruit and bring on, embody this idea that change starts right here with us, and change starts today right here with all of you. So thanks for coming, and really look forward to seeing what's generated from today.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. That was incredibly unexpected. Might bring you to more events then. No, thank you very much. And what we're very excited now is to bring up our first set of champions from the Open Government Champions of Change. If you guys are willing to walk up here, we've got Tom, who is the principal at the Democracy Fund, and Holly, who will be who is our policy advisor on open government, who will be moderating this this discussion. Thank you guys so much. Can we get a round of applause for the champions?
Hi, everyone. Well, thank you so much for coming, and it is a real honor to be up here with these wonderful champions of change working in their local communities to engage citizens in this very hard work of opening our government and really empowering communities. So I want to introduce Tom, who's a principal at the Democracy Fund, to kick off what I hope will be a really exciting and informative discussion. We have one more champ who's on his way from New York, so when he comes, he'll just come on in and join the fun. So I'm going to kick it off to Tom now.
Great, thanks, Holly. It's a real pleasure to be here. I work at the nexus of civic engagement, technology, and media around an idea around we can have a more informed participation in our government in this new century and new decades ahead of us. We have 30 minutes to share just a few of the stories of the 6 champs here. It's not going to be enough. They are busy people, they have done a lot. And they have much more to share than we can do in 30 minutes. So I'm going to be the taskmaster of this panel in trying to move us forward. And to start, I will ask each of them to introduce themselves and just tell a little bit about what brought them to this stage this morning and what motivates them a little. So, Deborah.
Health Attitude. Good morning. Sitsayaltsa Sitsta. My traditional Indian name is Sitsayaltsa. I'm the vice chairwoman of the Tulalip tribes. We are located in the state of Washington, so it's an honor to be here on the other side of our nation. And the question of what motivated myself maybe to become vice chairwoman is the dream of living on our reservation and seeing the changes that needed to occur from health care to hanging on to our traditional native language and really just getting through what it means to be a Native American in this country. And so for me, it's an honor to represent my tribe as the vice chairwoman, and there's so much work to do, so it's exciting to be here today and to maybe share a little bit of the work that that my elders have taught me that we need to do as a young, growing nation.
Thanks, David. Rob.
Hi, my name is Rob Davis. I'm from South Florida, Fort Lauderdale area. Spent a lot of time in Miami. I'm a recent graduate of Nova Southeastern University. Actually graduated with a marketing degree, so there's that. So what drives me, or what got me involved in open government and civic hacking in general, I was an intern actually at Code for America, and got exposed to all those ideas. And going from Florida to San Francisco is definitely a culture shift, but it brought a lot of ideas and made me want to help bring Florida into that kind of mentality of open government and how can we get more people involved in the process.
Okay, thanks. Stephen?
Well, good morning. I'm Stephen Clift from Minneapolis, and I believe in people. I think a lot of people think about technology, and they often put more faith in technology than people. But I actually believe in people, and I believe, though, in technology-empowered people, and how can we use these tools to actually make change and be connected. And I also believe in cats. And the reason I believe in cats is that they get lost a lot. And I have 1,000 of my neighbors that I've connected on an online neighborhood network through a nonprofit called eDemocracy. And if it wasn't for cats, I'd swear at least 10 or 20% of the people would not be there because they join out of necessity. And so when it comes to building community life, public life, we need to connect people based on what's relevant to them. And so going way back to '94 when I started all this, since then I've been working to figure out what's relevant to people and how can we connect them in every neighborhood and use these tools to actually break the ice online so we actually can do some good democracy in person.
Okay, thanks. Anita?
Cats, huh? Good morning. I'm Anita Brown Graham, the director of the Institute for Emerging Issues at North Carolina State University. And quite honestly, what brought me to the work that is being honored today is failure. Our organization grew out of a single annual event in North Carolina where 1,000 people would come together and get focused on some significant challenge or opportunity confronting the state's economic competitiveness. But what became really clear in a fast-growing state of 9.5 million people was that we were failing to reach many, many voices across the state, particularly across geographies beyond the Research Triangle Park, that we were failing to give people the kinds of information they needed to move change in their communities, that we were failing to inspire them, to give them good stories and best practices, and that we were failing to recognize that real work happens 24/7. And so the Emerging Issues Commons was born.
Thanks. Jerry?
I'm Jerry Shipsky, and I'm from the wonderful city of Long Beach, California, and I'm very happy to be their council person in the 5th Council District. I've been in office, this is my 7th year. And the way that I got involved in this whole issue about open government is because, as part of government, I found that because of the lack of print media in our community, although we do have some, that people were really hungry for information on city government. And so from the very beginning, I posted my calendar to let people know who I was meeting with, because they're paying my salary. I'm the only one that has a blog, and the Chamber of Commerce just told me it's probably the most read blog in Long Beach area. Also, I email alert to about 5,000 people twice a week. And most importantly, we started a project called Open Up Long Beach, because you have the right to know. And what I do is I take people behind the scenes of our city operations and I let them see how it operates, because our citizens want the information so that they can engage with us, but also they can help us with our decision making. And as a consequence, I have an extremely engaged constituency. Well, we brought online participatory budgeting last year. We've just done so many different things that engage people on their level, and it has helped me become a better member of the council, and I think it's really helped better decision making across the board.
Thank you, Jerry. That's amazing. So we've got a lot to cover with the breadth of the country, the breadth of experience, and the breadth of types of projects that everyone's engaged in. I'm going to start with Deborah, and up in the upper northwest. So you're focused on the work of your tribe, the Tulalip tribe, and the social and cultural development of the tribe. And I'm just sort of like to talk with you a little bit about what you're doing to advance that in terms of civic engagement and engagement with government.
Well, in 2012, I was elected to the Tribal Council, and I was one of 7 council members. I was the only female, and so it was an exciting time to help lead a nation, my tribal nation, and help others understand who we are as a people. And so, as we know, in our classrooms, we don't learn a lot about Native Americans. And in fact, maybe we're lucky if we get a day or a week in the public school systems learning about Native Americans. So I knew I had a big job. And so with that, I knew that I had to go to Washington, D.C. to help fight for our rights and help protect our salmon runs, help protect our health care dollars. And the more I learned about our own government and started learning, of course, we learn a lot about our nation's capital and government. I also had a whole learning area with tribal government. And so between the both, I really sought out to make some changes. And a big change that was important to me was when the Violence Against Women Act came forward. And I went to Senator Murray's office and asked her how that was moving along, and I found out that Native American women were not included in the bill. And so that really sparked something inside of me that said, wait a minute, Native American women need to be protected equally as any woman in this country, and any visitor who comes to our traditional lands should be protected. So that really sparked a change, and I think that's why I believe I'm here today, is because it took a lot of knocking on doors and helping to explain who we are as a traditional and cultural people, and how we run our governments, and how nation-to-nation building was so important for us. And really that really sparked the change. And in the end, I was very proud that Congress decided that Native American women are important to protect. And so we are part of the Violence Against Women Act. And I'm very proud of all of the advocates that were not only Native American, but we joined other female groups and other men as well. You know, we stood together, we stood strong, and we created change. And that took a lot of education. It took a lot of explaining who, many people don't even know where Tulalip is, or, some of the other over 500 tribes across the nation, and what we go through on a daily basis trying to maintain our language, trying to make sure our people have good health care and running water. I mean, and our natural resources are so important to us. These are our land bases. So it is a lot of work. As a young leader, young tribal leader, I've had to not only learn from the university perspective and what public education offers you, but also I've had to learn what our traditional way is and what our elders teach us. So that's very important to our people.
Yeah, thank you, Deborah. I think that's fascinating. And I want to just introduce Brad Lander, who just joined us from New York. He's a council member from New York, and amongst other things has helped to bring participatory budgeting to the city. So if you want to just do a quick 1-minute bio.
Great. Thank you so much. Really an honor to be here. Very inspired by what I've read about everybody here. So thank you so much for inviting me. My name is Brad Lander. I am a New York City Council member from Brooklyn. I co-chair our Progressive Caucus. Been in office just coming up on 4 years. Before that was in grassroots community development, affordable housing, community economic development. So have mostly focused on organizing. I'm being recognized today as part of a big team of people who are moving participatory budgeting in the United States. The first Alderman, Joe Moore in Chicago, started it about 4 years ago, but it's an idea that goes back 20 years in Porto Alegre, Brazil. We now have 10 council members doing it in New York City. It's growing around the country. Very simple idea with some public dollars, public tax resources that normally elected officials would just decide where it goes. We open it up to the people in our districts to decide. So we hold a series of community meetings. We offer online opportunities. People brainstorm together. Hundreds, in some cases thousands of people come out. What schools' bathrooms are so gross that they have to be fixed? Should we have a community compost facility so we could stop spending so much money landfilling organics, fixing up parks, making safer intersections? People brainstorm, they develop those projects, they put a ballot together, and then people vote. And so this past spring in New York City, over 10,000 people came out and voted in 8 districts around the city, and those are the projects that are being funded with tax dollars, so that the people's money are being spent really fixing the problems that people on the ground in our neighborhood know most need fixing.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you.
I'm going to pivot from New York to Minnesota and to Stephen Clift. So you've heard what's going on in New York in the city level here. And, you've been doing some work at the community level, the neighborhoods, and you've been on this journey. I think you coined the term e-democracy in '94. Tell us a little about that journey and what Be Neighbors is doing now.
Well, I managed to score the Twitter handle democracy as well, so that's I don't know what's a bigger deal, but I used to work in government. I used to work in state government. I helped create the portal, and then I did the nonpartisan, nonprofit e-democracy on the side. Government by day, citizen by night. And I always thought people in the revenue department were so excited. People can pay their taxes online. And I thought, but how do we give them a greater say? Where's the survey? Or where's the thing after you send the money in? And so I've always been interested in how we have more two-way engagement. And let's just be frank, basically everything national online about politics that's two-way is a giant mess. Vitriol, partisan bickering, anonymous aliases, it's a really big mess. But where do people actually interact online in a way that's actually useful and relevant and civil, and where people solve problems, where they can actually meet in person? That's at the neighborhood level. So BeNeighbors.org is our campaign right now to actually create, really in St. Paul, but also in Minneapolis and any city that wants to join us, the most inclusive network of neighborhood spaces possible online. Open to immigrants, open to folks who work there, open to folks who work for us in the library or in the parks, people who care about their community. And so we have about 15,000 users. This is a secret technology right here. We go door to door, and we target lower-income areas. We use census data, thank you, data from the government, to try to say, hey, let's have spaces online for all communities, for all people. And we hire an awesome team of folks, some folks that grew up in refugee camps that can speak Somali or speak Hmong, who can help us reach people where they are so that all neighbors can be together in an online space. So that's what BeNeighbors.org is up to.
Great. So now moving to Jerry, thinking, moving up the scale here to the city level. You've done some things in Long Beach, and you open up Long Beach. If you'd like to share some details of what you've seen and the response of people publicly to the innovations you've taken.
An incredible response. People are very hungry for information. And, getting back to what Thomas Jefferson said about that information is the currency of democracy, it really is. It is that currency that allows people to understand, particularly at the local level, because we are the closest level of government, what we do and what we don't do. And if you give people information, they will use it very positively. And that's what I'm seeing. People actually now expect, if they don't get an alert, we had some F-18s fly over by my neighborhood, and they said, where was your alert on it? You always let us know what's coming. Well, the military hadn't let us know it was coming, so we couldn't do it. But that's the kind of engagement they then know and can understand when they see something happening. Oh, okay, that's what's going on. We have the information. And it's just been a great response. We looked into what Brad is doing and other governments, and we did start participatory budgeting because we think it's important. I had people come out and had them rank infrastructure projects for my council district. And it was an incredible process. Even city staff said, wow, there are a lot of people here. And I said they want to be engaged, but they can't be unless you explain what infrastructure is, how it's done, how it's funded, and they then can go, okay, well then I can give a decision on this. And we use Google Earth Maps to be able to let them identify where they could see projects firsthand if they couldn't go out and visit them. So all this interaction with people really, I think, helped them step up to be the good citizens that I think everybody wants to be.
That's great. And so moving back to you, Brad, you're from Brooklyn, a famously sort of fractious part with a famously fractious politics. You're engaging the Brooklyn public in deciding priorities in a really meaningful way. This sounds hard, difficult, and fraught with danger. Tell us a little bit about the specifics here.
So
This challenge.
it definitely is. Look, I think in any enterprise, if you're going to include people across the diverse spectrum and make sure people least likely to participate are at whatever table it is, whatever portal it is, it's a lot of work to do that. People have a lot going on in their lives, and so even if the intersection right down the street from them is dangerous and they want to let people know, finding the right place to do it is hard work. So we do a lot of on-the-ground outreach in a lot of languages. We try to figure out where to reach people. In a certain way, it doesn't really matter whether it's online or off. The techniques of good outreach, of figuring out who leaders are, of how you get into communities, you got to do that. And you have to do it on the doors, and you have to do it online as well. So we put a lot of time in that staff time, but we also recruit. One great thing about participatory budgeting is it really brings volunteers out. So we have people that we call budget delegates. They develop the projects and put the ballots together. And so each year we've had well over 100 delegates just in my district and across the city several times that, and they play this role, and they do the outreach, they work with our staff, they put the ballot together. And I have to say, we worried that it would pit neighborhood against neighborhood or community against community, and certainly I represent a big Bangladeshi community. They really mobilized for the things that were most important to them. But you get a few votes, like you got 5 votes on our ballot this year. So even if you came for one project, you started to see what else was going on throughout the district, and it really brought out not only people's self-interest, but a broader shared civic interest, and that was one of the most inspiring things.
That's great. So, you're working at the city level. Anita, you're stepping up, you're at the state level, and you've built a very interesting platform, the Emerging Issues Commons. And I'm just interested to see how you're using that and how it's engaging people, and tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So the Emerging Issues Commons attempts to connect people within their communities, to connect people across communities, but also to connect people in communities to the state. And going to Jerry's point about how hungry people are for information, our experience has been that the kinds of issues we take on really require communities to organize themselves consistent with the way the state is either allocating resources or focusing on the opportunity. So particularly, I think, for the rural communities in North Carolina, it's very useful for them. For example, this year, as we were working on helping a state that traditionally had been a high manufacturing state find its new way in this manufacturing renaissance, those communities could do the things they could do, and they could organize and align with manufacturers and their educational institutions as much as they could, but ultimately they needed to know, what is the State Department of Public Instruction doing to support this work? What is the State Department of Commerce doing to support this work? What is our community college system doing to support this work? And where is our governor on this work? And the Emerging Issues Commons allows people to have those kinds of connections across the work.
That's amazing. That's great. And I think it's engaging a lot of different people, the rural communities as well. Which
Absolutely. So what this allows us to do that we could never have done with in-person convenings, and I absolutely agree with Brad's point that you're doing the same work, but with this tool, this electronic tool, you can reach people who can't get in their cars and drive to Raleigh to sit in a meeting for an hour and a half. And that makes all the difference in the world in both hearing their voice so that we can carry that to the state level, but also being able to make sure that we are communicating back to them.
That's great. That's great. And Rob, we talked earlier, and I said worked out who you are and what you're doing, and you describe yourself as a user of government. And just tell us about the work you're doing here, because you come from you're a little younger than everyone else here, and you're really pushing the boundaries, I think. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just gives it another perspective. So, I'm not a developer. I'm a recent graduate. So I don't sit on the council, or I would like to attend more meetings, but the process by which we go about doing that has always been really difficult. And I remember going through high school and even in college, I don't remember that much or learning that much about my local and state government. I know that we learn about it, but it's just, this is what you have to know for the test, and then you move on, kind of. So I always wanted to get more involved, and it wasn't until after high school where I started getting more involved just locally. I was in student government, and then wanted to see what's the next logical step from that. And then I found out about civic hacking at literally the perfect time, because I was trying to decide what I wanted to do. And after getting all these new ideas, I was like, wow, this is the next step for local government, is just having more dialogue between groups. And as a user, I mean, that's how we kind of experience government. Like, I mean, even if you work in government, you're still a citizen. So the process by which you can, like, talk about politics or your views on a certain bill, like, it's all an opportunity just to have dialogue. And I think that's like the most important part, is having more opportunities to have dialogue. And just from my own experience in Miami, like a few foundations, like the Knight Foundation and a co-working space, the Lab Miami, really pushed a good sense of that environment. And we did, I think the first time was like an idea jam, just to present ideas. Like, what do you think we can make the area better by? And it wasn't like, we're going to do this one and not this one. It was just, let's all just put it all out there. If it's good and it works, let's try to work on it. And if not, we can probably either turn it into something else or get it, because there's probably something there anyway, or go to maybe the underlying issue of, oh, this could totally change now. And as a user, the experience is definitely improving, and the more opportunities that we participate, the experience improves overall. So
opening it up to all of you, you've all brought projects from your communities to the table and from your state. If we think about the view to the future and the next 5 or 10 years, where would you like to take this? And perhaps, Anita, where do you see the Emerging Issues Commons going in 5 years or 10 years? What's the dream?
So clearly the dream is to engage many more people in this work. I read once that it takes 10% of the population to really move an idea forward. So I've been teasing my colleagues at work. That means we need 900,000 North Carolinians on the Emerging Issues Commons. The reality, though, is I think Steve raised what is more important, a dream for me, and that is about enhancing the quality of the deliberations. There's no question that we still have some ways to go in order for people to be able to use technology to have truly meaningful and nuanced conversations, and I want the Emerging Issues Commons to be an example of how we do that work.
Jerry, if you add to that, I mean...
Absolutely, what Anita says is so important, and I think we've got to realize that not everyone is tech savvy, as much as we'd like to assume because we are, or we're trying to be. We have to figure out how do we reach people at different levels, and this technology that is out there, the tools that we have are out there, we just need to be able to identify. And then as a public official, one of the things we need to grapple with is that we use social media more and more to communicate. We have to grapple with the issue about public records. Are these now public records? Because our traditional way has been through government email sites. Now we have created an entire way to communicate to constituents about official business, and they're not considered public records in most domains. So I know that we're trying to grapple with that, and I know Peter Sheeran for the First Amendment Coalition has been really focused on that to try to help local governments deal with that. And then finally, we have to acknowledge that there are a base of constituents that are older that may not even want to be tech savvy, and that as I walk door to door, because that's another tool that we use, but I find that some people just absolutely don't want to use the internet, and or their sons or daughters will come once a week and answer their emails, and so we have to figure out how do we reach them, and we have to, I think, partner with cable, we have to partner with television and see that that's where people really of a certain generation and age do get a lot of their information. They don't get local information. So how do we deal with that? So I think going forward, we've got a lot of opportunities, we've got a lot of tools, but we just have to figure out how to make them work.
Right. Deborah, looking at the Tulalip tribe, you described yourself as a young leader trying to move things forward. What you heard everyone else around the table, are there things you're looking to move forward with regard to closing the digital divide on the reservation or in other ways?
Yes, and that for our reservations across the nation, closing the digital divide and opening up communication is it's been a very difficult process because of our economics and how difficult it is. Some tribes are in very remote areas, so I know it creates very much a challenge for tribal leaders across the country to communicate and to also not only communicate in the English language, but we have our traditional languages. So we're looking for ways to open that up to our children and to bring back those traditional cultural ways so that our children don't feel isolated in the school systems and our children don't feel that they're not a part of this country, because we very much are the very fabric, the very I was always taught the very earth. These are where our people are, and we're not going anywhere. And we don't represent a huge number in the United States, but for us, we have many generations of stories that we can tell. And I believe the United States has so much to learn from Native Americans that would just really enhance who we are as a nation. And we have so many beautiful principles and values. And so it's going to take a lot of work from not only our people, but also very kind, caring people and those who are interested in learning about new ways of life and language and learning old ways, because it's those old ways that really protect who we are in our environment and just the core of who we are. And we come from a very spiritual way of life. And I think once others get back to that spiritual place, I think we'll have many more happy people than what we're seeing here today.
So, on that note, talking about happy people and moving the world forward, we're back at the end of our time here, so this is the lightning round. In 3 words or less, 3 words or less, one piece of advice for someone aspiring to work on issues of civic engagement.
Connect your block.
Connect your block.
I was going to say knock on doors, so.
Open, transparent, and accountable.
Just try it.
She stole mine. I was going to say just do it.
Deborah?
Let's see. Be real to yourself. Be honest.
Great. Thank you very much. I think we're out of time, so thank you.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm Nick Sinai, one of Todd's deputy CTOs, and it's fantastic to see everybody. And it's a really inspiring panel here because I think it speaks a lot to what open government is. We talk a lot about open government in terms of participation, transparency, accountability, and all of these important principles that the President has talked about. But at the end of the day, it's really about people and people who are taking the initiative, who are being iterative, who are bringing change to their community. And whether that's on the local level or whether that's on the federal level, that's what we're here to celebrate. And I'm totally humbled and inspired by the folks here and, in fact, the folks in the room, because I see a lot of fantastic folks. So I want to tell a quick little story. On the President's first full day in office, he signed a memorandum on transparency and open government, directing agencies to be more transparent, participatory, and collaborative in their decision-making, furthering their mission. And I think that's an important point, is that an important part of open government is about furthering mission and how government can be more effective, how it can be smarter, how it can work for Americans, and how it can give them opportunities to engage and to get better services. And so agencies are doing that, and there's a whole list of examples of how we're making good progress, and we still have some real progress to go. So it's still a work in progress. At the UN General Assembly in 2010, President Obama challenged leaders to return in 2011 with specific commitments on opening up government. And thus, in 2011, the Open Government Partnership was launched at the margins of the UN General Assembly. The Open Government Partnership is a flagship multilateral initiative where a number of countries are opening up their governments as well. And it's not a top-down approach where we're all kind of developing open government plans and that's that. It's really a collaborative approach with civil society and nonprofits, and also with the public. And that's what's so exciting. And it's been a learning process for the federal government, and it's also been a fantastic learning process for the nonprofits involved, as well as for the public as well. And so in our first National Action Plan, We put forth a plan of 26 commitments around participation, engagement, greater transparency, around opening up government data, and we met 24 out of those 26 commitments. And I think that's actually great that we didn't meet all 26, because it shows that some of these commitments were stretch and that we were pushing ourselves and trying new things. And we recently published a self-assessment report, and in fact, we are in the midst of doing a second national action plan. And again, this is not going to be a top-down exercise. I think this will actually not succeed if we write the most brilliant open government plan that is all about transparency, participation, collaboration, all of those great buzzwords, but we don't engage real people, and we don't engage open government folks who are thinking about how this can impact people in real ways. And so I'm excited to kind of essentially call all of you to help participate. And there's a variety of ways to do that at whitehouse.gov/open, at our OpenGov Twitter feed. We have an open email box, which is opengov@osdp.gov. But more importantly, we're going to have additional opportunities, both online and offline, for the public to participate. Because what we really want to do is make sure that we learn from all of you. And I think that's actually where I'd like to close, is that when I think about a lot of our open data work, a lot of stuff that I spend a lot of time in, we're totally inspired by what's happening at the city level and the state level and the county level. In fact, some of our best inspiration has come from the local folks, and has come from international as well. I mean, we're totally inspired by what the UK government is doing as well. And so I think we have tremendous opportunities to learn from all of you, both on the open government side and on the civic hacking side, because it really is inspiring. So again, thank you.
Thank you so much, Nick. Next up, many of you guys have heard, I think was it trending on Twitter when next.data.gov went live. And so here we have Ryan Panchadsaram, who is a senior advisor to the United States Chief Technology Officer, and he will be presenting the latest iteration of next.data.gov.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ryan Panchadsaram. I have a quick question. How many of you like data? Awesome, right room. So I noticed in this lovely podium, I don't have a clicker, so I'm going to say next slide, and we're going to keep going. So I'm going to share the future of data.gov. But first, data.gov today, which was started about 4 years ago, holds about 75,000 data sets. Everything from credit card complaints to hospital charge transparency data, including even weather and climate measurements. It's a great resource and kind of beacon for large federal data sets that exist out there. But over the past few months, we've spent some time with the data.gov team at GSA, with the Presidential Innovation Fellows, and the larger community to help reimagine what's possible with this. And with the new focus on saying, let's put data first. And so I'm kind of excited to show you the next slide, which is a peek at what data.gov is going to look like. And so if you go to next.data.gov, you'll see this new data.gov experience, which puts data first. It's being built completely in the open source. This is, of course, an early preview. And so we've only spent about a month or two working on it, and we're going to continue to make updates on it every other week. And I'll tell you more later on how you can be involved. And so if you click next, you'll actually see the new emphasis on how data is actually being used. And so we've added this rich stream that includes how what featured data sets are, what companies are using these data sets in innovative ways, what tweets and blog posts that are being published out there about them. And so we'd love to get your feedback on what you think about this approach. If you click the next slide, you'll see what the data communities are looking like. And so this is what the energy community is going to be. And we've got a stream of data, little featured rich boxes that have tweets from the Secretary of Energy. We have tweets from some of the PIFs who are doing some neat, interesting data work. And we also have some really cool featured data sets that you can go look at that are interesting in the energy space. So on the surface, this is a new way to experience a lot of the awesome data sets. But when you're looking for a particular data set of importance, you're going to want to have to search it and do it really easily. And if you click on the next slide, you'll see what the new search experience is looking like. And this is all built on an open source tool called CCAN, which is a data catalog that's in the open source that uses something called Solar. And it's going to make searching for data sets even easier and filtering them by whether it be tags or different content types. Like if you're a CSV bulk download kind of person, you can go that way. Or if you're an API person, you can go that way too. But one thing you'll notice is there are only 409 data sets right now. And so what's happening here is actually this is pulling all the data sets from Health and Human Services publicly available data.json file. And so Nick talked about how the president signed an executive order on making open data machine readable and as the default. One part of it is asking every single agency to publish a data.json file that catalogs all their public data sets. And as each agency puts that out between now and November, you're going to start seeing next.data.gov to come to life. And if you go to the next slide, this is actually more also a call to the communities out there, whether state and local level. You know, this new federated approach of data.gov pulling from all the different sources at agencies can also happen in states and cities, and that's even being done today at the existing data.gov. And so get a head start by publishing a data.json file yourself. And so communities have everything from bike lanes published in machine-readable format to local health scores from restaurants. So get a head start. This is something that you're going to hear more from Brian and myself and the data.gov team on how you can start to get involved. But if you go to, I believe it's project-open-data.github.io, you can learn more about what that is and see how we're doing. It's a lot long, but anyway, you can go to next.data.gov and there's a lot of links there. And I'll close off with the last slide, which shows you the front again. And my ask to everyone here is, tell us what you think. Nick Sinai posted a Quora post asking your feedback, because we want to help shape this over the course of the next few months. If you're a developer, there's a link at the bottom of this site that says improve this site, and click on it, and you can actually make changes on our GitHub code itself. And I think to date we've already gotten maybe, I think about 5 or 6 different pull requests and a handful of issues. And so we're really excited to evolve this in front of you. This is next.data.gov, and thank you.
Thanks so much, Ryan. And we actually have one of the leaders who has put his city data online at cities.data.gov. We have Mayor Fisher here from Louisville. And he's been one of the leaders. But you folks in the room and online are also leaders in your community. And so I know that was a really long URL that Ryan just spit out to you guys, but what I'll do is I'll send an email out to all of the attendees here, and we'll tweet out a link as well with a one-sheeter on instructions on how you can help get your city on board with their open government data like Mayor Fisher has. So our next speaker, I remember when he sent me an email last year, and he said, Brian, I want to create a civic hacking event around the country where everyone hacks on open government data over one weekend. And I read it. I thought it was interesting. We had a phone call, and a few months later, we had one of the most incredible civic hacking events across the country with the help of Nick's leadership and Second Muse as well. So up next is the lead for open government, Nick Skitland of NASA.
All right, well, thank you for attending today. I'm so excited to be here. And I just wanted to say a few remarks on behalf of Deborah Diaz, the Deputy CIO at NASA, and on behalf of the entire leadership team of the National Day of Civic Hacking. And I have 5 minutes to cover the entire results of the event. And so I was thinking back, and it was a little bit less than a year ago that we had that conversation, and there's a community of people that came together and had this realization that there were a lot of really amazing civic hacking events going on around the nation. And so we thought, how can we align this community together on one weekend to really push forward the prosperity of the United States? And so that's where we came up with the idea for National Day of Civic Hacking. And it's incredible what has taken place in the last year. So if you haven't been following along, or if you didn't get a chance to participate, National Day of Civic Hacking took place on June 1st and 2nd. It was a weekend, and it took place in more than 83 cities around the nation. There were 95 total events, which is incredible. Prior to this, the largest mass collaboration was just a couple months earlier, and this really eclipsed it and really set the record for the largest mass collaboration of all time. More than 11,000 citizens came together to participate in the event. 21 federal government agencies participated, 6 state agencies, or 6 state governments, and countless numbers of cities and counties. Events ranged in size from just a handful of citizens coming together in small towns around America for the first time around civic hacking in places like Maine and New Mexico, to events that had over 300 people in Los Angeles, to Palo Alto, which really just went over and above and had 5,000 people show up. Mayors attended in a number of cities: Los Angeles, San Diego, Baltimore, Kalamazoo, Louisville, and Palo Alto. And it's estimated, probably conservatively, that over $11 million of volunteer hours were contributed just over that 48-hour period of time. That's incredible. And so the results were impressive, and we really started a movement with this, and hundreds of projects took place around the nation. And you are a community of people that have an opportunity today to participate in this Champions of Change event and represent all your communities back home. And you know as well as I do, there are countless numbers of people who give anything to be here today. So I want to really encourage you to take advantage of your opportunity here, network with other people, and go back and just really use this as a catalyst to what you're doing in your cities and in your local communities, your local governments going forward. There are a number of examples, and I obviously can't go through all of them, but I wanted to mention a few of them. At the city level, in Rockaway Beach, New York, and Tulsa, Oklahoma, there were communities who were already working on developing tools to mobilize search and rescue volunteer efforts after a natural disaster. And they were actually able to connect with the Open FEMA team during the event, and are now working together on really developing these tools that are going to benefit communities around the nation, maybe around the world, in recovering after natural events. In San Francisco, there is an amazing project, if you haven't heard of it, called Free Space. It's a 14,000 square foot civic hacking space that is in the Central Market District. And if you get the chance to go to San Francisco, I encourage you to stop by and check it out. It's a place for the community to come together. And in the first 30 days of its existence, they had 109 events. And there are probably thousands of people that have came in and out of this place, and there's so much that's happening around there. And then at the federal agency level, 21 agencies came together. That's incredible, to open up their data and offer challenges around just open government. And there's examples from USDA and NSF and NASA and the census. There's so many good examples. So I encourage you to go to hackforchange.org and check that out. This could not have been possible without the leadership of SecondMuse. If you're in the civic hacking space, SecondMuse is really behind a lot of events like Random Hacks of Kindness, like the National Day of Civic Hacking. We could not have done this without the support of the partner organizations, Code for America, Innovation Endeavors, Random Hacks of Kindness, and the sponsors. We had incredible sponsors, and you're going to hear from Brandon of Intel next. Intel was a sponsor, Edelman, Code for Good, Rally Software, Socrata, and Elance. We could not obviously have done this without the support of the White House. And so right now, I just want to give the White House and OSCP a round of applause, because we're so thankful for their leadership here. And finally, I want to thank you guys. You guys are really the champions of change around the nation. And I always like to leave the last thought with a call to action. And the call to action here today is simply go back to your communities and do this again, but do it bigger. Get more people involved. One of the ideas we had for National Day of Civic Hacking was, how do we reach the small towns in America? And a lot of you today represent larger towns, larger cities in America, where you have a lot of resources. And you're equipped with a lot of just talent and volunteers. But there's a lot of small towns around America that don't have that luxury. So going forward, I really encourage everyone to reach out to the towns and the communities around them and pull them in and serve as inspiration to leaders who are rising up in those communities, so that when we come again together next year, this is an even more impactful event for the United States. Thank you.
Thank you again, Nick, for your incredible leadership in the federal government. Next up, we've got Brandon Barnett, who's the Director of Business Innovation at Intel Corporation. Thank you, Brandon.
Thanks, Brian. I'm just thrilled to be here. So Intel was the headline corporate sponsor for the event, and we are just really enthusiastic to see what was going to come out of this event, and our expectations were exceeded by, you can see from the examples of the projects and the efforts that were done. Intel is interested in this not just from a social innovation standpoint, but from an economic innovation standpoint. And we're interested how open data and these great resources that the government agencies are opening up can actually be used to help individuals in their daily lives and to reset the economics around solving problems for them in a sustainable way. So we're focused not just on the open data and the big data, but the personal data, the data that helps us decide what movies to buy or what recommendations I get for restaurants. And I think we can all agree that that's pretty limited in terms of the power of our own personal data in our lives. And so the hypothesis was that through the National Day of Civic Hacking, we could use that type of data in conjunction with these big open data sets to not just solve kind of big government problems, but also specific problems in the lives of individuals as they go about their daily lives, facing challenges of transportation or services or educational decisions. We had one output from the local hackathon that I was at in Portland, Oregon, where people scraped their LinkedIn profiles and their Facebook profiles and combined it with Department of Labor data and census data and provided an educational plan for that individual in their lives to help make them make a good decision for themselves. And that's the kind of sustainable economic models that we see just emerging in what we're calling the data society. This notion that people can be empowered through data, personal data, big government open data, in combination to really provide unique insights. And so we are motivated to continue this. For those of you who participate in events like this, the National Day of Civic Hacking, it was an awesome event as Nick was discussing. But that's often just the start. And we're interested in how to move that forward beyond, the recognition here and the great 2 days of hacking that we had. And so Intel is committed to continuing that. We're again partnering with Second Muse, and we're going to run an innovation pipeline, an accelerator, to fund some of those ideas forward to become economically viable, to pursue the success of their ideas, but not just in isolation, in collaboration. How can those data sets be used across the different domains and applications using government and open data to solve problems for people? So we've recognized a lot of the Champions for Change, and I also want to recognize them. Awesome job. But I also want to take just a moment to recognize the agencies and the work that they did. We had great conversations with Lisa and Logan from the Census, with Sam from the Bureau of Economic Analysis, with the BEA and EPA, agency leaders who engaged in conversations not about just visualizing the government data more effectively, but how that data can be applied to individuals in their lives. And that was a great collaboration for us. We're opening up our innovation pipeline again, so those who want to collaborate with Second Muse and Intel, we're happy to engage with that dialogue and continue the open innovation, value creation of personal and open data. So thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Brandon. It's so important to have the private sector support of these amazing tools to lead to their sustainability and growth throughout the country. Next up, we have David Agnew, who is the Deputy Assistant to the President and Director of Intergovernmental Affairs.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. My name is David Agnew, Director of Intergovernmental Affairs, and it's an honor to be here to introduce our keynote speaker this morning, the Mayor of Louisville, Greg Fisher. It's always a good day in my world when we have folks from across the country here at the White House, local officials from across the country who are doing good things. I always say that the role of Intergovernmental Affairs is to try to connect the President to every elected official in America, other than the U.S. Congress, thank God. We have other people in the building that get to do that job, but our job is to try to make sure that the President hears from state, local, and tribal officials around the country about what they're doing, and that we bring those local voices to this table here in Washington, D.C. And so today, and days like today, are great for the work that we do, certainly in the realm of open government and technological advancement. The work that local governments are doing around the country stands out as an area of great promise. I think when you combine federal leadership with the good work going on across the country at the local level, it gets very exciting. And I think today, I looked at the agenda, it looks like a great agenda with so much fantastic discussion. Anytime you can put Todd Park and Brian Ford in a room with local officials, good things are going to happen. I don't know what they are. I couldn't predict what will come out of that, but I know that it'll be a good day, and I know the discussion will be useful for all of you. And I want to congratulate all the champions of change who are being recognized here today for your good work. I came from the local level. I worked for a very innovative mayor myself, the mayor of Charleston, South Carolina, and I passionately believe in the type of change you can make at the local level. And I'm honored every day to bring that perspective to the White House. We couldn't have a better person to speak about all of this than Mayor Greg Fisher. He's the perfect person to be here today, not only because the national championship basketball team from Louisville is going to be recognized by the president here in a little while. That's quite an interesting coincidence. Wasn't planned that way, but I love it when it happens. Mayor Fisher has been doing great things in Louisville since he became mayor. He is using LouisStat to use data to track and improve city services. The city is sponsoring hackathons and codathons and many more great things. He has a great team working with him. Ted Smith is here, and we've enjoyed our partnership with Ted and with the mayor. His leadership has been recognized by others. The city was chosen by IBM in 2011 as an IBM Smarter City. It was named a top digital city in America for 2012 and also named a top 10 social media city in 2012. Prior to becoming mayor, Mayor Fisher was an inventor and a businessman. And I know when he ran for mayor, he made open government and transparency one of the 4 planks of his platform. So he has been focused on this since the beginning. But most importantly, I want to tell you quickly a story from last week. I was taking a bus home from the White House one night, and there was an African-American women's sorority here in town, the Deltas. There were 30,000 of them here, and you could, they were all wearing bright red. That's their thing. And so I was on a bus, and this woman was sitting there in a bright red dress from head to toe and a hat. And I asked her where she was from, and she said Louisville. And her name was Linda Kane. And so as I often do, I start asking her when I meet folks about the mayor. Tell me what you think about the mayor. Get an honest assessment. And Linda Kane loved Mayor Fisher. She went on and on and on about the mayor, how great he was. She said he wouldn't know her by name, but she worked for him on the campaign and thinks he's been doing an amazing job. And that's the best affirmation of all for a mayor to receive when a stranger in a strange city wants to talk about what a fantastic job they're doing. So it's great with Linda Kane's affirmation to introduce to you my friend and the great mayor of Louisville, Kentucky, Greg Fisher.
All right. Well, thanks, David, and thanks, Linda Kane, too. Okay. I appreciate that. No, it's great to be here with everybody today, and I think when the history books are written about President Obama's administration, one of the things that will be recognized is the groundbreaking work that the president and his team, Brian, Todd, and others, are doing with innovation and technology. This is the first administration to really understand the pivotal moment that we're at as a society and bring this into office and have this as a way of thinking throughout our entire country. You know, it's just obviously July 4th this month, celebrating our 237th birthday as a country. And when I was thinking about those days when the founding fathers gathered to write the Declaration of Independence and then later the Constitution, I realized that they were engaging a process that was very familiar to people in this room. Think about that gathering. It was the country's first hackathon, right? These were a bunch of folks that were highly skilled in the information technology of that time, which was writing and expressing their ideas. They certainly said, we can collaborate, we need to be disruptive, and we need to create the underpinnings for a new government. So clearly, history shows us this was citizenship of the highest order, and this is also what we're talking about here today. The willingness of skilled, highly creative people to come together to give of themselves and to share ideas about something that's bigger than any of us individually. And you all are what I call patriots. You're just doing it in a different age with different tools. And in Louisville, when we have people step up like you all step up, I call them citizen soldiers, people that realize there's more to being an American than just paying taxes, but it's also stepping up to say, how can we make our communities a better place? And as you all know, a lot of people don't do that. So thank you for being citizen soldiers and great patriots. I am not going to waste this opportunity without bragging a little bit about my city. And if you don't know these things, you should already. First, David just mentioned the University of Louisville Cardinals are being recognized as the NCAA Men's Basketball Championship today. Lonely Planet recently named Louisville as the #1 travel destination in the country for people to come and visit. Zagat named the 8 foodiest cities in the world. The only one in North America for good local food is Louisville. A recent Brookings study said we are the 4th fastest growing regional economy in the country as well. We create 95% of the world's bourbon in Kentucky. The other 5% is counterfeit, so be careful about that. And of particular interest to some of y'all in this room that are GQ subscribers, Gentlemen's Quarterly subscribers, Louisville was named the manliest city in North America for 2012 as well. But what I want to talk about today is Louisville's dedication, our zeal for, our commitment to innovation at all levels of our city. I want to talk about 2 frameworks for innovation. One is organizational innovation. And this is the sort of innovation that happens within government as we figure out how to get closer to our customers, our citizens, how to improve operational efficiency, internally focused issues. And then I want to talk a little bit about community innovation or social innovation, where government data and community interest overlap and how they can feed off of each other in this new age of big data, open information, and really accelerate change and improvement. So first, let's take a look at organizational improvement and innovation. We would like to say and think that Louisville is a leader in data-driven performance improvement. You hear about the big cities all the time, but there are a lot of cities like Louisville that are mid-sized cities, metro population of about 1.5 million. So when my team took office, we came in, this was about 2.5 years ago, with a fierce dedication to transparency and open government. So one of the things we initially did was create a process called LouisStat, Louisville Statistics, how we can use data to identify problems. Each one of our departments is dedicated to at least being in the top quartile of their departments when we compare ourselves against our national peers. So how could we use data to really improve and create the best city government in the country? So a quick example of the success of a program like LouisStat, when you deliberately use all the data that's open, but frequently has been stored away in drawers where nobody's taken a look at, but how can we bring it to life, have total participation amongst all of our employees, and have people get about the work of creating a better government? Government's a service business, so it can be measured just like any service business. So one of the services that we provide that I hope none of you all will have to take advantage of is a visit to our jail, okay? We have a jail that holds about 2,000 people, and our data collection quickly started showing us that we had a problem. We were having 380 fingerprint errors a month. Now we have 30,000 opportunities for fingerprints a month. Most people have 10 fingerprints, some don't. That causes a separate problem. But we had 380 fingerprints. And you got to get them right, because that's a method of identification on how you track people through the jail and then when you release them. You wouldn't want to be the person that had the wrong fingerprints when it was your time to check out of the joint. So what did we do? We said, all right, we got a problem here that's unacceptable. So map the process, lean out the process, provide more training. We go in 3 months from 380 errors to 5 errors out of 30,000 opportunities. Massive improvement. We call that continuous improvement. So that's good. We're doing that every day in every department with the data that we have and training. But then you have to say, what is the nature of the job? The job for all of us is made of what I call daily work, kind of the day in and day out stuff that you do, but then continuous improvement. What are the techniques and tools that you use to make sure you're the best in the world at whatever you do, or your team is the best in the world? But then the third is, what tools do you use for breakthrough, for innovation, for creating products or services that are going to delight people, that might have some latent need that was addressed that nobody ever thought of before? So I'd ask you to think about how you allocate your time between daily work, continuous improvement, and breakthrough. And if you're not allocating your time to those latter two, continuous improvement and breakthrough, more than likely you're going to be operating in the swamp the rest of your life. But you're not here because you guys are swamp fighters. So you have to allocate specific resources to breakthrough and innovation, or the likelihood of it happening is very low. So through innovation delivery teams, we have a group of about 10 people that's just focusing on various areas of innovation by coming in, identifying problems, but then being disruptive with their solutions as they work with the teams. So ask yourselves, how are you working on innovation? Engagement obviously is a huge part of this as well for all of us. From virtual town halls to a Vision Louisville process, which is creating a vision for our city 10, 25, and 50 years out that has a massive digital inclusion campaign associated with that, including a partnership with Living Cities, where we've created social network tools to reach out to the millennials that are in vulnerable populations of our city that frequently feel like they're not engaged with the city, and the city may not even be relevant to them. So it's been very interesting to see how we can bring them in primarily through different Twitter strategies and get their ideas for what the future of their city is as well. Pulling them in citizenship where they say, hey, I count. I'm part of the future as well. So this is just some of what we call organizational innovation, but we also really focus on community innovation or civic innovation, and this is where things really get interesting for us. Shortly, our year 2, when we were in office, we were named an IBM Smarter City. David talked about that, and we launched a program called Asthmopolis. How could we analyze as people that suffered from asthma in our community and try to create a better environment for them? And let me just say, while I'm at this point, I wouldn't be able to be up here talking about all this stuff if it wasn't for a great team that we had in Louisville that's really into this stuff. But our champion for change is Ted Smith. Where is Ted? Ted, if you'd stand up, he's in the back here. He's one of Ted is one of the leading thinkers in the country around all this area, and we're delighted that he plays such a critical role in innovation on our team. So the Asthmopolis project, we distributed 500 asthma inhalers around the city with a GPS device on them. And so when the asthma inhaler is used, signal goes up to the web, data comes in saying, here's where the inhalers are being used, here's the time of day that they're being used, so we can start understanding the data behind the use of asthma. So now as it comes in, we're trying to see what are the patterns, what are the hot spots, the hot times, and literally see how people are moving and how different places and times can affect people's health. Then we put a big data overlay on top of that to say what areas of town have the most trouble, where are the pollution hotspots. Interestingly, the areas adjacent to the pollution, where we thought were the pollution hotspots, are not the worst areas. What's going on with that? Need to overlay the weather maps on top of that to understand that better. So how does inhaler use correlate, let's say, to air quality, alert days, pollen counts, street closed for repaving? Didn't inhaler use go down? So we can model changes to show how public health can be improved. What if we increased the tree canopy? What if we mitigated traffic patterns? So this is really pretty cool, where you can take a public health issue, unleash, liberate data, put it on top of each other like we've never been able to before, and improve people's lives. And I know that's what motivates the majority of the people in this room, is being able to do that. So this is something where people may not even know what happened, but they're delighted. And when you can say, well, your local government had something to do with that. And they might think, well, finally, government does something good. But through all this, we can smartly use the data that we produce day in and day out and make people's lives better. That turns us on in Louisville. Here's a couple other ways we're fostering civic innovation. We're a leader in open data, and just as a matter of policy, all data is open. We have a vacant and abandoned property challenge. Almost every city does. We have about 1,200 properties that are vacant and abandoned. So we've used a Louis-Stat type of model so people can understand where the properties are, where they are, and what state of disposition, and how they can then help us solve this problem. So we move citizens from complaining to helping, to being part of a solution. They start reframing how they look at themselves as a citizen and their role as a citizen. It's not some extraordinary act. It's just who they are as part of their daily goings about. So when you can get to that point, you know you're starting to have breakthrough as a community. Because when everybody feels that transformation is their job in terms of making a better city, state, or country, boy, there's nothing that can stop us. Citizenship is the cure. So last, I just want to make a comment or two on the importance of social innovation, how it relates to people interacting with each other and our brains, our minds. If our brains and our minds are not open for a question or open for investigation or new insights, clearly we're not going to learn. And in my view, the role of government is to help people reach their human potential. Some people don't need any help. Other people need a lot of help. So how do we connect at the city, state, and federal level to make this happen? We're certainly all interconnected, right? Big theme of mine in the community. You may not think you're connected to somebody way across the city, but we all pay taxes together into the same pool, and we all go to the same public schools together. So we are, in fact, connected. Now, breaking down those barriers where sometimes people see that can be difficult, but boy, when you travel through that, that's a breakthrough for the community as well. And I submit that if we don't feel connected at a personal level, then these digital solutions or these innovation solutions that we're talking about here today are of no use, because ultimately we are doing it to help people. And so this is why one of our core values of our city is compassion. 3 big values. One's lifelong learning / innovation. Second is healthy city, physical health, mental health, environmental health, spiritual health. And the third is an even more compassionate city. How can we just help each other as a matter of course every day? Not because you're in it for yourself, but because it's the right thing to do. You know, as the Dalai Lama says, to be happy, be compassionate. To make others happy, be compassionate as well. And this prepares the brain then for greater insight on our work in innovation and digital solutions. So we're working with the Stanford Neuroscience Institute to understand how compassion affects the brain. Louisville is an international model city for compassion. The Dalai Lama recently visited us in May. Louisville is a city, we set a world record for compassion. At least I proclaimed that as mayor. Mayor's got a lot of power. Proclamations are one of them. And I have never been fact-checked on a proclamation that I've made. So we had 107,000 volunteers in 1 week to come out and do service work for the community. And with that, I said we did set a world record. But the relevant factor here is that we're so data-driven and excited about measuring innovation that we want to know how compassion affects the brain and can make our cities a better place. So if you're here this morning, you can already see that something really special is happening around the country in terms of how people are engaging with not just their hands, but their heads and their hearts as well. Look at all of you all here today, champions of change, friends and relatives, alumni that have come together to change your communities. And certainly we feel like city government has got a role to do that in Louisville, to kind of set the pace, not only to be a business-friendly place, but to be a place where everybody can win. So we're together. I think this is a grand experiment that we're in right now, but we're off to a good start. But when you think about the pace of change and globalization and the digital world, it's just the beginning. And that's what's really exciting about where is this going to go. So you guys and gals are the early leaders, the pioneers, just like the founding fathers were back in 1776 when they said, let's try this big, great experiment as a country. I would submit that we're at a new chapter here today, and that, in fact, you all are amongst the leaders doing that. So congratulations for this great honor here today. Anytime you can come to our nation's capital and come to the White House and be honored like this is a red-letter day for your life. So congratulations, keep up the great work, and thank you very much for your leadership.
You know, one of my favorite things working with David and his team at Intergovernmental Affairs is he makes introductions to some of the most innovative mayors in America. And, you know, I think after hearing the great talk from Mayor Fisher, we can all agree that this isn't a proclamation, but feel free to fact check it. He's definitely one of the most innovative mayors in America. So thank you again, Mayor Fisher, for coming out. And I think he would agree, as he recognized in his talk, that mayors can't be innovative without the team behind them, both formal and informal. So you've got Ted Smith, who's definitely the formal channel, but folks like him around the country who are representing mayors work collectively with civic hacking teams that are the informal community that produce some of the technology that helps address some of the critical social issues. Because, and again, it's not about the technology, it's about the people. But today we want to recognize some of the champions of change from civic hacking. So if they could come up, we'll have a panel discussion and hear how they have been incredibly effective in their towns. We just have too many of them. There's too many awesome people, which is not a bad problem. So thank you guys again. I know you guys have flown in from across the country representing amazing towns and communities. And we're so excited that you guys are here with us at the White House as champions of change. In fact, many of you participated in the National Day of Civic Hacking. And so what we wanted to do is spend the next 30 minutes talking about some of the great work that you've done. And then hearing about some of the feedback that you can give to folks in the audience and folks on the web as well, and to learn from some of your incredible experience. But before that, I want to get a show of hands. How many folks participated in the National Day of Civic Hacking? And for those in the camera who can't see, it's almost everyone. And so we have an incredible community of folks here, not only at the table, but also in the audience who worked on incredible projects. So what I wanted to start off with, just going down the table, spending a minute each on your elevator pitch. Talk about the project or the community that you lead or the business that you started that's having an impact in your town, and then we'll go from there. So we'll start off with Scott.
Good morning. Thank you, Brian. Scott Phillips, Code for Tulsa. We had a unique opportunity. Unfortunately, Oklahoma suffered from the Moore tornado disaster. A massive EF5 tornado ripped through Moore, Oklahoma, just down the turnpike from Tulsa, a little bit over a week before our National Day of Civic Hacking event. Open FEMA reached out to us, offered their resources. We saw it as an incredible opportunity to collaborate. We pulled together a hackathon team. Literally in a matter of hours, we pulled together 2 state agencies that are part of Urban Search and Rescue. We put together a hackathon team, and we built an Urban Search and Rescue map project that takes, all of you have probably seen the orange spray paint X's you see after any major disaster where a search team goes through a dwelling to make sure they're survivors and such. We virtualized that entire experience with a geocoded map that allows all search teams to, in real time, update search progress, search findings. The base of operations is then able to monitor progress, direct those search teams to specific areas accordingly. The amazing thing from my perspective is federal agency works with local volunteers who then reaches out to 2 state organizations. And then through Open FEMA, we ultimately ended up partnering with Jessica Klein, who you'll hear from in a second. So all of that to come together in less than a week involving the federal government, the story there is what's amazing to me.
Great. Thank you, Scott. Next up, we have Lai, who is a former returned Peace Corps volunteer and had the most international project of the group.
Hi, I'm Craig Michael Lanjai, but everyone calls me Lai. I was a Peace Corps volunteer, as you said, in the Gambia, where I was given this kaftan, which I am wearing today, to not only recognize and honor the many Gambians that I worked with as a Peace Corps volunteer, but also the Gambians who came and worked on the National Day of Civic Hacking project and in the follow-up Gambian Random Hacks of Kindness. This was not just one event. This has been a marathon with a number of batons passed, and one of those Gambians is here today, Amber and Gay, and I just want to recognize him for his work, he was really the primary architect and developer for MedLink. So what is MedLink? MedLink is a technology platform that connects medical supplies and services to those who need them in rural and developing countries. Often, in order to find out if supplies even exist in a particular medical facility, you have to travel many hours at great expense, especially if we're living on $1 or $2 a day, which is a good salary in a lot of developing areas. And once you get there, you're told the medicines don't exist, or to come back the next day, maybe the next day, maybe the next day, and this is a real problem. MedLink allows people in those communities to use SMS-based tools to request supplies and services, and then allows medical providers not only to let them know when and where those supplies will exist, but also integrate those requests into inventory and control and purchasing systems so that they can plan for the next round of requests, which is something that's very hard to do when you have random people showing up from different locations.
Great.
So it saves time, money, and literally saves lives.
Amazingly. Thank you so much. Next up, we have Chris Walker, who will talk about his amazing work.
Good morning. My name is Christopher Whitaker. I am the Code for America Brigade Captain for Chicago and a project manager at the Smart Chicago Collaborative. We support civic innovation in Chicago in a number of ways. We host civic apps on our servers. We provide civic user testing for those apps so that we can test our apps out with everyday residents of Chicago. We also, through a grant through the MacArthur Foundation, the Knight Foundation, and the Chicago Community Trust, are able to hire full-time developers to build civic apps for the city of Chicago. And finally, most importantly, we help connect civic technologists with community organizations who are kind of doing the day-to-day work of trying to solve civic problems in our neighborhoods.
Awesome. And I actually got a quote from John Tolva, the City of Chicago CTO, when he said, in talking about Christopher, he said, "He marshals the troops, blogs insightfully on more events and happenings than should be possible for a single person, and makes important connections between community stakeholders and civic developers." And so he just wanted to recognize your work as well.
Thank you.
Well done, Christopher. Next up, we have Katria O'Neill.
Hi guys, I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Recovers. We do disaster preparedness and recovery technology out of San Francisco. And I got into emergency management the old-fashioned way by having a tornado hit my house. In the aftermath, I got involved filling in the gaps between the capabilities of big organizations with local resources and helping community organizations get involved in structuring their own response. And my community is a little under 9,000 people in Munson, Massachusetts, but we've spent the last 2 years bringing these tools and support and permission to other communities that have also been hit by disasters. And in that work have helped over hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people get involved with local recovery. I'm happy to be here today because it means that guerrilla organizing can eventually get respectable if you push long enough. So if you're being sent home and told no, I would say that you should keep trying until you have results that can then be brought up in official meetings.
Thank you so much, Katria. As mentioned earlier by Jonathan Greenblatt, George is helping build the technology to keep Austin fed. George?
Yeah, thank you for inviting us to the White House, and thank you for Keep Austin Fed for providing us the opportunity to essentially provide them the technology to run their services. So what's surprising is I'm also a co-founder of a company that's really similar to Keep Austin Fed. We run a company called Give Pulse. My co-founder is there in the audience. Give Pulse is essentially a social network that encourages volunteers to essentially find causes. Causes are able to organize and manage volunteers in one central network. One of the things that James and I have essentially agreed on is we should give back to the community as much as possible. And we got the opportunity to essentially be invited to St. Edward's University to be part of this hackathon. That was when I met kind of my love of my life, Randy Rosens, who's the founder of Keep Austin Fed. He made this really compelling pitch, and that was 1 out of 7 people in Austin are hungry. And surprisingly, 1/3 of all food is wasted. James and I looked at each other and were like, okay, we have to do something. We should create some type of technology that helps their service run really, really efficiently. So what we essentially done was create a service that enabled donors, food donors, restaurants, caterers, events, to mobilize volunteers, mobilize available volunteers to pick up the food and deliver it to the needy. So thank you once again.
Thank you, George. Next up, we have Travis with Stop the Beef, incredibly fascinating project.
Thank you very much. My name is Travis Laurendine. I'm representing the New Orleans Civic Hackathon. I organized the first Super Bowl hackathon, and now I'm the founder of the first code school in New Orleans, is what we've turned the hackathon organization into. A week before the National Civic Hack Day, similar to Tulsa, we need some water up here. Similar to Tulsa, we had a Mother's Day shooting that y'all probably heard about, where 20 people were shot in New Orleans. And New Orleans has a murder rate that's 10 times the national average. And it's something that me and my fellow citizens, we just couldn't stand for anymore. So we went to the community and we asked for a ton of ideas, and we said, we're going to actually tackle this. I went to someone I work with in the entertainment business, a hip-hop MC, and I said, how do you solve this problem? And he actually told me the model of how he had mediated a conflict and prevented a murder from happening, which then kept other murders and retaliatory murders from happening. And so using that unit model, we created a system to scale that to actually create a Match.com for conflict mediation. So the way it works is that people can submit their conflicts, mothers, sisters, friends can point out who the people are involved in a conflict anonymously, either by phone or by the internet. And then we search a database of OGs, who are people in the community who actually who care about people and want to stop this violence from becoming actual murders. And so we search that across the databases, find out who it is, and then find the appropriate matchmakers.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Travis. Next up, we have Steven Spiker, who's more affectionately called as Spike.
Okay, I feel a little bit lame following that, especially coming from the city of Oakland, which has such a similar violence problem. But we're doing something different. So I've had the privilege of working with a social justice organization, Urban Strategies Council, for the last 7 years. But a year ago, a friend and I started an organization. We saw a need for a civic innovation type of organization, yes, but we realized that hackathons are fun and they're great at building community, but they're not really good at building and sustaining things. So we wanted to provide a backbone organization that helped hackers actually contribute on a long-term basis to the good of their cities. And we also thought that it was important not to just hack for the sake of it, for fun, for geekery, but to actually do things that mattered in our city. And we wanted to actually create an organization that enabled city government to collaborate with us and with others in a safe way. And we wanted to also demonstrate, everyone in the room, it seems like, buys the idea of open government. We wanted to actually demonstrate what that looked like. And it's great to talk about open government and transparency, but how do you actually demonstrate what that looks like in your local city so residents and local officials can see what this looks like when you are innovating, when you're open and you're engaged? And we really wanted to be able to make these opportunities so that the city could actually consider us as essentially the testing ground, where cities can't take risks so much. We can certainly do things that actually take risks for the cities and actually collaborate and engage and do things that maybe aren't as easy to do within the governmental structure. And we really also, we all like tech and we love new tools and we build apps, but we really understand that engagement is a big key piece. Like the Open Government Group this morning overlaps so much with our ideas. We get that engagement is crucial, and how we do it is both online and in person. And that's something that we offer that cities often struggle with, is the understanding of the open source technology community. Online communities get engagement, and we can also bring those stories to our local government.
Great.
And so that's what we set out to create.
Thanks so much, Spike. And then lastly, we have Jess, who, what I love about what Jess and Scott did is they actually partnered up and they were working on similar ideas. And we see that a lot with civic hacking events, that people produce similar applications trying to address similar issues. And so when these two partnered up, that's just what should start to happen throughout the country, and also what I love about some of your other projects where you've taken the code base from other cities and built upon it. So, Jess?
Hi. I am Jess Klein. And I am the co-founder of Rockaway Help, and my day job, I am the creative lead on the Mozilla Open Badges project. And similar to many of the stories here, I got involved in disaster relief after Hurricane Sandy hit my hometown of Rockaway Beach and basically destroyed part of my family's house. And I met with my colleagues, now colleagues, but at the time friends who I met over Twitter during the night of the storm, because my friends and I were in Brooklyn or outside of Rockaway during the night of the storm, and panicking because all of our parents decided to stay in Rockaway throughout the storm and you know, power through the storm. And of course, powering through meant that we were neurotic the entire night and checking Twitter and connecting, and eventually that helped us to connect with each other and get back to Rockaway and figure out how to get back to our community and help people. And so initially we did emergency response and kind of relief work, which was really like gutting houses, helping people find other people in the community. But then as time progressed, we really started to focus on rebuilding, which I suspect you'll be doing in Tulsa in a few months. And so actually, when it came to the hackathon, it was sort of a natural choice for us to do a hackathon because we already were doing local, hyper-local news and hyper-local communication and trying to figure out how to improve systems around using social media, but also just really building our own systems and our own technologies. But then how to take that to the next level and be innovative around rebuilding was just a natural challenge for us that we were already dealing with. So it was a nice moment to really engage our community of designers, developers, but more importantly, locals.
Thanks so much, Jess. So we have about 10 minutes left, so we'll try to stick to one question and 1 minute responses so we can get through this and we can hear everyone's diverse opinions here. So I'll start out with Lai, who had the most international project. What was one of your biggest challenges?
I think the biggest challenge is not getting people initially involved, but it's maintaining involvement. It's one thing to get involved in a 2-day hackathon that's a weekend event, but it's a completely different thing to get somebody to follow on for the 3rd day or the next weekend or the following month. And that is more of a cheerleading effort than it is a technology effort. And I think that's one of the things that's really missing from a lot of the hackathon focus is this notion of short, sweet, short attention span, ADD, I'll get it done this weekend and then walk away from it. And for me, it wasn't the first weekend that was the hard part. It's been every weekend subsequent, trying to continue the ball rolling and make sure that the next step is identified before we start working towards it so that we know where we're going and who we're going to hand it off to when we get there.
And doing that internationally must be incredibly difficult.
It's actually easier internationally than it is locally because you've got people who can hand it off and then work on it the next morning while you're sleeping, and then you can do this really
Now that's efficiency. I like that. And building off of that, Jess, what support do you guys need to continue to grow?
I mean, it's a great question. I think that the biggest kind of support that we need is really just the acknowledgement that after natural disaster, the problems don't stop. Someone from the government, someone from the military came up to me when we were right after the hurricane and we were moving sewage out of somebody's house, and I was like, oh well, we finished my parents' house, that's done, and they were like, it's never going to stop. This is always going to be a problem for your family their entire rest of their lives. And I think that's important to realize that Rockaway is always going to be needing help, and it's always going to be needing support from the government and from locals. And I think in order to continue, we need to kind of first recognize that there still are problems, and then start to come up with plans on how to really tackle those problems.
Speaking of support for government and hearing Mayor Fisher's talk, Spike, you've worked incredibly closely with the city of Oklahoma, with Oakland Answers. Do you have a minute to talk about Oakland Answers and how others can build up relationships like you have?
Sure. So Oakland Answers was, in Oakland we like to do things differently. So everyone else was hacking on open data and we're hacking on ideas and questions, simple stuff. And with Civic Hacking, it's important to start where your city is at, what the needs are. And so we gathered 70 residents, city staff, and developers for a day to do a write-a-thon instead of a hackathon. And what we built was a system that was open source, built in Honolulu, originally at Honolulu Answers, and redeployed it in Oakland. The software was free for reuse, and so we stood it up locally. And we basically spent the day brainstorming common questions that people would have when they go to hit your city website. So typically when you hit your city website, you've got to navigate through departments and agencies and commissions, and what the heck do you know about those things? You just want to find an answer to your question. And what this system does is it gives you a really simple answer to the question you have. So instead of navigating the departments, I want to know about, can I park on the yellow curb? Can I get my trash picked up this day of the week? There's the answer, bang. So a really simple way to actually find the information you need instead of navigating, but it was done collaboratively. So we spent the whole day writing these solutions in language that people could actually understand. There's some things on top of that, like language accessibility that needs to happen, but it was a fun day to sort of really collaborate on something that really helped the lives of citizens across the city, and hopefully is a long-term solution going forward.
Awesome, thanks, Mike. Some of the great feedback that we got from New Orleans was the way that, Travis, you engaged in the evening to go really understand the people problem before building out the technology. Could you talk more about that?
All right, so I'm a big fan of Steve Blank and the customer validation. So we went to the customers who were these at-risk youths, and we said, is this something that you would use? Would you actually submit information about a beef, a conflict in your community? And they said, yes, under certain circumstances, yes, we would do this. And then we went back to the mediators, and we went to people who are hip-hop people, church leaders. We said, would you do this? Would you actually mediate a conflict if we told you, based on your Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn combined graph, that someone was actually in your network that had a conflict and you were the appropriate person? Would you go in and do this? And we had a resounding yes. And so we checked and made sure that this would actually work first. And then we also used the government resources that the mayor of New Orleans actually has a program called NOLA for Life to combat that. And we said, is this conflict mediation something that's really useful? And they said, yes, 60% of the murders that we know the causes of come from previous conflicts. So it's actually, we're tackling the biggest brunt of the murder problem.
Fantastic. So George, you guys in a sense have formed a partnership with a local organization. What we really like about what you've done is you've identified you're working with a nonprofit, which isn't part of the government, but they're still solving a critical social problem that to address hunger. And so, can you talk a little bit more about how you've built out this partnership and where you think it's going? I think you described it. You did a hackathon in 48 hours, but you look at this as a 48-year partnership.
Right. I had surprising expectations. I went in the hackathon expecting myself to only spend 48 hours and just code and leave. It wasn't really like that. Randy Rosens did a really great job essentially empowering us to essentially code all night for him. And it felt it's like he's slave driving us. No, but I think it was more of like him just being there. His presence has kind of like lifted us and made us really passionate about what we're doing. And the really great thing was, usually when you're coding, you don't really see the end product being used by people. Well, Randy actually used our service on that time. So it was more of like seeing our product actually being used immediately that made an impact on us. And to just what Brian's saying, what I thought was just a 48-hour period was really a relationship that's going to last hopefully past 48 years. So it's been a great experience.
That's fantastic. Thanks, George. Thanks. I think one of the most interesting things about Katria's project, it's not a project, it's an actual company. And so we've talked today a little earlier about sustainability and how you build a project out over a weekend and how it can last a lot longer, whether it's open source the code or building out a long-term partnership with an organization. And so the other way to make it sustainable is actually starting a business. So I'd love to hear more from Katria about that.
Yeah, we work with a lot of small communities, and small communities don't have hackathons. They have Earl the webmaster, and he's in charge of everything. So they can't necessarily take open source code. They can't necessarily babysit an app when you have to add lines of data to that. And that's really where companies come in. There's a lot of space for people who are solving problems that a lot of communities experience to spread those best practices over these communities. I initially thought would be a nonprofit, actually, but we didn't want to compete with the communities we were trying to help for funding. So we ended up selling services to preparing municipalities, working with a third stakeholder, insurance companies, who love it when you can solve a problem with local resources or even prevent damage by work ahead of a storm. And I mean, there are definitely challenges in being a for-profit company, but it's the easiest corporate status. It does not mean you're stealing money from disaster survivors. We give away things for free after disasters. It's just a corporate status, and it's something you should look at if you have a project and you're trying to scale it to many communities. It's definitely one of the ways to go.
Thanks so much. So, Christopher, we'd love to hear from you as someone who's built out such a strong community, as said by your CTO of Chicago. What are the 3 best ways to grow a civic hacking community in your neighborhood?
Well, so Chicago has an ecosystem of civic innovation. We have very strong support from the mayor of Chicago and the chief information officer, Brennan Brennan. We have John Tova, who's enormously supportive of the effort. And then kind of our secret weapon is Tom Schenk, who's the director of analytics, who's a regular attendee at our weekly civic hacking events. So when we have questions about data or we'd like to see a specific data set, we can just ask him directly, and being able to do that has been enormously helpful. On the second side is having a strong volunteer community. Derek Eater and Forrest Gregg, who help run the OpenGov Hack Nights, are actually here in the audience today, and we've been doing these hack nights for the last year. And so it's enormously helpful to kind of week in and week out being able to work on civic innovation projects. And lastly, and this is something that we're trying to do at Smart Chicago, being able to both support projects both financially and being able to sort of organize and link community organizations with civic technologists to sort of connect the people who are working on the problems on a day-to-day basis with civic technologists who want to help solve the problem, really to create apps that really do solve the problem.
Great. Thanks so much, Christopher. And last question of the day for Scott. So I think you have a fascinating tool, and you're just starting to build it out right now and see some of what you could accomplish with it. But what are some of the other applications for the tool that aren't readily apparent that you could see it being used for?
Well, that's a great question, and it's kind of been amazing for us. When we first thought of this, we were thinking about tornadoes. We honestly had not thought about other disasters, and then when OpenFEMA connected us with Jessica, we were like, wow, we kind of had some blinders on there. So clearly, any major urban disasters, an area. But as we've shown people the mapping technology, people have talked about, reporting stray dogs and cats. I mean, there's just all these things about the mapping layer component of what we're doing and allowing citizens to be involved. When I describe this entire movement to people, we talk about open data and transparency. And what I tell people is the real way to think about where we're headed with all this is the first step is to give the transparent component, give citizens transparency to government. But the second step is to give them a voice in their government. The third step is actually give them ownership of their government. So when you think about this mapping tool and its other potential uses, suddenly we have a situation where the entire community is having ownership in their government by contributing content to this map, whether it's related to a disaster or finding lost animals or any other applications.
Right. Without doubt, that's amazing. Before we give them a round of applause, I know they were very specific when they said, it's not just me, it's my team. And some of the team members were able to make it out. But in addition to that, there's a room full of folks who have built out amazing applications at the National Day of Civic Hacking as well. So I'd just love to give all of the teammates and all of the folks who participate in the National Day of Civic Hacking a big round of applause. And a big thank you to the champions. So today's been an incredible day, so incredible that I can't even find all of my notes. We've seen so many different people on stage. In fact, Holly should be one of the people on the stage who helped pull this together. But we heard from incredible open government experts, civic hackers, and innovators applying their tech skills for civic good. These civic hackers are empowered by open government data to build tools, apps, and services that meet public needs at the national, state, and local levels. We heard from one of the most innovative mayors in America, Mayor Fisher, who are enabling innovation in their town and enabling the civic hacking communities, open government communities that you folks are building out every single day. We heard from Nick at NASA, who is being an incredible leader, and he's when you think about federal government employees, sometimes you may not think about innovation, but when I think about innovation, I think about all of the incredible work that he's doing and that all of the federal employees are doing across the country. And so just seeing some of these incredible examples is truly amazing, especially with the results of the National Civic Day of Hacking. In addition to that, Intel made an incredible announcement that are going to continue the sustainability of many of the projects that are starting to come out of the National Civic Day of Hacking that really just happened about a month and a half ago. And so it's really impressive. We heard from open government experts, from the champions there. We also heard from the civic hacking champions. So we heard from an incredible amount of people today, and I think I learned an incredible amount today. I hope everyone in the audience and everyone online learned an incredible amount today as well. So thank you all so much for coming out. But there are also a few other people who made this day possible. Shilpa is absolutely one of them. You guys. Currently an undergraduate engineer at MIT, and the reason this day and you all are here. So thank you so much to Shilpa. And Hannah as well, who I'm not sure is in the room, but she's also been an incredible support. So thank you guys all so much. I know Holly has a few words as well, and then we'll talk about what's going to happen later this afternoon.
Wonderful. Well, a big thank you to Brian for all of his efforts. And, to me, it's very exciting to see all the synergies that have emerged throughout these conversations. People are excited about information, and they're excited about engaging citizens. And I think that there's a lot of fruitful collaborations and a lot of exciting work that we can do moving forward. So a show of hands, who's going to stay for our wonderful workshops after this? Well, that's pretty good. And I think we're going to get a lot of fruitful discussions out of this.